Okay, everyone, we're jumping straight into a critical deep dive today. We're looking at the energy transition in Puerto Rico, specifically the Operations and Maintenance Agreement, the OMA, with LUMA Energy. Our sources, well, they really frame this as a story of a dual crisis. First, there's the massive, fragile system they inherited. Just a mess, really. But then you have how the actual contract, its implementation, seemed to make things worse, accelerating the breakdown.
It's a tough story. You've got this inherited failure, decades in the making, colliding with some really acute flaws in how the transition was handled. Before LUMA even arrived, the foundation was just crumbling.
Crumbling how?
Well, think about decades of serious underinvestment, plus the old utility prepaid. It basically collapsed financially, left behind a $9 billion debt burden.
$9 billion, that's staggering. That financial weight alone is huge, but the physical side wasn't any better, was it?
Not at all. The sources really hammer this point. The island's power generation was 93% reliant on fossil fuels, volatile ones.
And the real kicker, wasn't it petroleum?
Petroleum, yeah. 62% of the generating capacity. Now, you have to understand, on the U.S. mainland, petroleum is, less than 1% of generation? It's a massive vulnerability.
A unique and, frankly, expensive vulnerability.
Exactly. And even just trying to sort out that debt, the Title III bankruptcy process, it cost a fortune.
How much are we talking?
Over $440 million authorized just for consultants and lawyers. And here's something else, local Puerto Rican firms. They only saw about 3% of that money.
Wow. Okay, so after all that cost, you get the OMA. This was supposed to be the solution. But looking at the contract itself, a big question pops up. Where was LUMA's own risk, their skin in the game?
That's the core issue many sources point to. The contract guaranteed LUMA a fixed fee. Over the whole period, it was $1.625 billion.
Guaranteed. Regardless of performance.
Paid regardless.
Yeah.
And critically, the contract required zero capital investment from LUMA itself.
Zero. So they weren't putting their own money into fixing the infrastructure.
Correct. The structure basically insulated them from financial risk. But maybe the most damaging part of the implementation wasn't financial. It was human.
The workforce.
The human capital exodus.
Yeah.
The way the transition was handled alienated so many existing pre-PA workers. You saw over 70% of the experienced technical staff leave.
70%? How many people is that?
More than 3,000 workers. Experienced line workers, engineers, technicians. Gone. It created this immediate, huge expertise gap.
And wasn't a big selling point of privatization faster access to federal recovery money, like FEMA funds?
That was the promise, absolutely. $16 billion in federal funds waiting. But the sources showed actually created new problems. Luma ran into compliance issues with FEMA pretty quickly.
Compliance issues? How?
It had to do with using seconded employees, basically contractors or temporary staff, for work funded by FEMA. FEMA had rules about that, and it caused delays and complications.
So this lack of in-house experienced staff, it must have hit operations hard.
Directly. You see it most clearly in the outage data. The key metric is Average Interruption Duration Index.
Right, how long the average customer has their power out each year.
Exactly. And by 2023, Puerto Rico's SAED climbed to 12,272 minutes per year.
1,272 minutes, that's almost 22 hours, nearly a full day without power for the average person.
And compare that to the U.S. median, which is around 121 minutes. It's roughly a tenfold increase, a massive deterioration in reliability.
How could the official reports not scream crisis with numbers like that? Was it hidden?
Well, not hidden exactly, but maybe obscured by reporting rules. This is where you see a kind of regulatory weakness. LMA's reported SAED, the official number, it excludes outages from what they call major event days.
Okay, like hurricanes maybe? That's somewhat standard.
Yes, but critically, it also excludes outages caused by generation problems, failures at the power plants themselves.
Wait, so if a power plant fails and causes a blackout, those minutes don't count in the main reliability score?
They often don't. We know, for instance, in 2024, there were 35 reported generation shortfall events, the average length, 192 minutes each. Those minutes just disappear from the headline SAED figure.
So the regulator, the Puerto Rico Energy Bureau, NEPR, they see this happening, but their hands are tied by the contract.
Largely, yes. The contract limits penalties. An NEPR can really only reduce LUMA's incentive fee, which isn't the same as imposing significant financial fines for poor performance.
Not much of a stick, then.
Not a very big one. And actually canceling the contract.
Yeah.
Extremely expensive. Estimates range from $300 to $600 million. For the government, that's practically prohibitive. It makes tough enforcement very difficult.
Okay, so let's synthesize this. The takeaway seems pretty stark. Yes, the old system, the prepay legacy, was deeply flawed, huge problems. But the sources suggest this acute deterioration, the massive increase in outages we can measure, stems directly from these contractual issues,
Yeah.
issues that protected the operator financially while gutting the experienced workforce.
That captures it well. The legacy problems were the chronic condition, but the contract and its implementation created the acute crisis. And if you think about stabilizing things now, it's not just about money, though the federal funds are crucial. It means urgently finding ways to bring back or integrate that lost technical expertise. And it means empowering NEPR, mandating real financial penalties tied to performance, and demanding total transparency in reporting all outage minutes, no exceptions for generation failures.
That transparency, those real penalties, absolutely vital. But even with those changes, fixing that centralized grid, that's a long-term project, isn't it? It's still going to be fragile.
For years, almost certainly, it's a massive undertaking.
Which brings us to our final thought for you today. Given this ongoing fragility, this instability of the main grid that seems likely to persist, does this whole experience suggest that policymakers really need to shift focus? Prioritize accelerating distributed, decentralized power, things like rooftop solar, microgrids, maybe enhancing that community-level resilience almost independent of the central grid operator is the only truly reliable path forward for Puerto Rico, something to think about.